welcome. This is Pavel from Coding Jam Session, and today we're going to talk about the useState hook in React, so stay tuned. Here we've got a simple app containing two buttons for login and logout, with corresponding event handlers that change the logged in state from false to true or reverse. When I press the login button, we can see that we're logged in. When I press the logout button, we can see we're logged out. A second state variable called posts is initially set to an empty array. This will contain data that we're going to fetch from an API and display underneath. Obtaining the posts is handled by the fetch data method. Let's introduce the useEffect. So it's a hook that helps us handle lifecycle methods in functional components. There's three ways of using the hook, depending whether we want the code to run once, every time state updates, or when the component unmounts. Let's have a look at hook itself. It takes two arguments. First one is the function that runs after component renders. Second one is a dependency array. If we want the code within useEffect to run only once after the first render, we simply leave the dependency array empty. If I type in console log hooray, just like this will run only once after the component renders. And we can see when I refresh the page, we've got the hooray logged into the console. If you want the code to run every time certain state variable changes its value, which corresponds to lifecycle method component did update, we simply insert the state variable into the dependency array. For example, if I put the logged in variable into the dependency array, whenever the logged in changes its state, we should see the console log invoked. So let's have a look. There you go. Whenever I press the login or logout button, we can see that the code is logged into the console. If we include the return statement inside our useEffect, we can pass it a cleanup function that's going to be invoked every time that the component unmounts. Now, let's dive into the example with external data. If we want to fetch data from external API, we need to use the useEffect hook. Otherwise, we would end up having infinite loop of invoking the fetch method caused by re-renders of the component. So, if we want to fetch and display posts when our page is loaded, we're gonna put our fetch data method inside useEffect and leave the dependency array empty. That means we're calling the API only once when the component renders. So let's have a look. Let's put in our fetch method. Now we can see that every time I refresh the page, we get the posts fetched and displayed. What if I wanted to display the posts only for the logged in users? Let's refresh the page, and we can see that if I leave the code like this, we can't see any posts, even if I log in, and that's because the code runs only once after first render of the component. So no matter if I press the login or logout, the posts are not getting fetched, and that's because the dependency array is empty. Well, the solution is quite simple. If we want to run the code inside useEffect every time the login status changes, we simply need to include the logged in state within the dependency array. Just like so. And now when I save the file and refresh, we can see that we logged out. We cannot see any posts, but when I log in, the state changes and the fetch method is invoked. We can see the posts displayed. Now, let's clear the posts when we log out. So whenever we're not logged in, we're gonna just set our posts to an empty array. And now whenever I press the logout button, we're clearing the posts, but when I change the login state back to true, we can see that the fetch method is invoked again. So whenever this login state changes, we can see this code inside the useEffect invoked. If the dependency array was empty, the code would run only once after the first render. So that's it for today. Thank you very much and stay tuned for more videos. Subscribe for more content.